is my great pleasure to be here with so many of you who are so committed to caring with thought, with compassion, and with commitment for the seniors of our community here in British Columbia. And I'm going to take a little bit of time today just to talk about some reflections on the year that I've been in this office, on some of the issues that are facing our seniors in British Columbia, and then I'm going to delve a little bit into some of the issues that are going to specifically touch on your practice on a day-to-day basis out there in the community. So, as it was pointed out, it's been a year. I was appointed on March 19th, but I started on April 1st. Brand new office, brand new world. You arrive and they give you a package with some paper clips and a desk lamp and say, go to it. And so there was a lot of time spent trying to figure out where would the office be? Would it be in Victoria? Would it be in Vancouver? How would it be staffed? Who would it be? And so I was quite committed before a lot of those decisions were going to be made to get out and talk to the seniors of British Columbia and find out what their thoughts were and what their issues were, because it occurred to me that how you set up the office, what direction you wanted to head in, what kind of disciplines and people you put in the office would actually be shaped to some extent by what seniors saw as their issues. So first of all, let's just take a look at the face of seniors in British Columbia, and I think this is very informative, especially for those of us who work in the care field, to be reminded of the vastness of diversity that there are amongst our seniors in BC. So currently there's 820,000 seniors in British Columbia. It's 17% of our population. And that is projected to grow to 1.1 million, or 21% by 2023. Actually, and it's going to go up to about 25% by 2031, at which point it stabilizes. What's important about that is to realize that the rate of growth is actually less than 1% a year until we reach the plateau where we start to stabilize. So we hear a lot of drama about a silver tsunami, and it's going to take over the healthcare, and it's going to dwarf us, and we're going to be engulfed with all of it. The data actually don't support that. First of all, there's lots of other places in the world that have 25% of their population or more over the age of 65 now, and they haven't come crashing to the ground. We have time for thoughtful planning and thoughtful processes to deal with the aging population, and an opportunity to look at other jurisdictions that are dealing with the population at the age we will be. So 56% are age 65 to 74, and we know that that's an age that's not yet a high user of the healthcare system and very unlikely to be in receipt of the kinds of services most of you in this room are in the practice of delivering. 30% are age 75 to 84, and that's starting to get into a utilization of services and possibly getting into residential care. And then 14% are over the age of 85. Here's another important thing to remember, particularly for those of us in this room who live in the world of care provision, is that less than 4% of seniors, 3.7%, live in residential care. 1.7% of those 65 to 84 years old, even over the age of 85, only 17% live in residential care. And so we need to remember that there's this vastness of seniors out there who are not touching our healthcare system, number one. And number two, to the seniors of British Columbia, the message is, statistically speaking, you are actually unlikely to end up in residential care. It is not a preordained outcome that your aging process follows this trajectory where you all end up in residential care before the end. In fact, the data don't support that. Less than 4% of BC seniors receive home support. So then we think about, well, if I'm not in residential care, surely I'm going to be at home and infirm and in need of a care aide coming to my home. Well, in fact, again, the data don't support that. The overwhelming odds are that you will not be part of that system. Only 2.3% of seniors 65 to 84 are in receipt of home care. Home support, home care I've used interchangeably here. And 12.5% of those over the age of 85. 20% of our seniors are renters, and 80% own their home. So 80% of our seniors are out there in their own house. Now, some of it is apartments or is condominiums and townhouses, but the vast majority is just a single family home in a neighborhood. Nearly 2/3 of our seniors live in urban areas, And that's important to recognize because there are a lot of supports and services that we can put in place in urban areas that are in fact more challenging in the rural and remote parts of British Columbia. And certainly when I, as a city girl from Victoria, got out and about in this province, it was simply nothing short of humbling to see seniors in places like Dawson Creek and Cranbrook and Prince Rupert and Terrace and Barrier and Williams Lake, and the lack of services and supports that they have relative to the seniors who live in the community I come from. And certainly as I have traveled about on the Lower Mainland to be exposed to and to understand the diversity of cultures in the Lower Mainland and the multicultural mosaic that has developed here versus Victoria, which is not multicultural, and anybody who lives in Victoria that thinks it is just needs to live over here for a few weeks to understand that it's not. Here's the other thing, the median income, we all know what median means, right? 50% of the people are below it and 50% of the people are above it. It's actually a more meaningful measure than averages. The median income for seniors in this province is $24,600. That means that half of our seniors are living on less than $25,000 a year. Now, it makes a big difference if they live alone versus a couple. If you've got two people on $25,000 a year, that's not as catastrophic. But 24% of our seniors do live alone. So that's a pretty sobering reminder of the kinds of challenges that our seniors are facing. 52,000 of them live on $16,200 a year or less. That $16,200 recognizes maximum OAS, GIS, and senior supplement. So in an immigrant community, if you haven't lived in Canada for 40 years, you don't get your maximum OAS. You're less than $16,200. And if you haven't been working in a job and paying into CPP, there's no CPP. 11% of seniors are employed, people over 65, and I always say I actually think that's a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think engagement is important, and engagement can be in paid work, it can be in voluntary work, but it is important to be engaged. So the role of the seniors advocate, I won't spend a lot of time on this because it was done in the introduction. Monitoring services, analyzing systemic issues, making recommendations to government, to health authorities, to other service providers, informing the public, the seniors of this province and their families about systemic issues that affect them and about services available to them, and to provide reports both directly to the minister, who must make them public, and directly out to the public. And I think the important thing is to recognize that healthcare is only one of 5 areas that this office touches. And again, it's important to recognize there's a lot of things that impact seniors that are not healthcare. Personal supports, getting their driveway shoveled if they're in Williams Lake, or getting their wood split to heat their home if they live in Souk. Housing, big issue, and the topic of a report I'm issuing on May the 6th. Transportation, huge issue. And it's interesting that it's different where you live in British Columbia. So when you come to the Lower Mainland, transportation is all wrapped up in one word, TransLink. And there's no shortage of issues around that. Well, when you get outside the Lower Mainland, there's something called TAP, which I thought was a dance, but in fact is not, Travel Assistance Program. So when they talk about transportation, they're not whining about, I have to wait 15 minutes for my handy dart to personally come to my door to pick me up, to personally take me to my doctor's appointment. They're talking about, I've got to get on a bus for 8 hours to go to Royal Inland Hospital or Kelowna General, and I've got to spend overnight there, and nobody's paying for my hotel room, and on and on and on it goes. So there's 2 solitudes out there, rural British Columbia and urban British Columbia, around transportation. And income supports. There is definitely a concern, and a legitimate concern, amongst seniors about running out of money. And one way they run out of money is their spouse dies and an income source is eliminated. The other one I've joked about, I'm going to do a report, what happens when the RIF runs out, is to remember that there's a lot of seniors who are doing fairly well right now because they're getting $500, $600, $700 a month out of their RIF. Well, RIFs run out usually around age 90, and we're not running out at age 90 anymore. So we've got a little problem, and if we start structuring our RIFs to run out at 95, we're going to get less money from the RIF. So there does appear to be a very legitimate reason for income concerns to be out there.